I still remember the sound of the door. Not the slam, but the silence that followed. It was early evening, the kind where the sky turns dull, orange and the city hums like it doesn't care about broken homes. I was sitting on the edge of our couch holding my phone, rereading the same message again and again. I'm leaving. Don't follow me. Her name, Emily, glowed on the screen like a wound that refused to close. We had been married for 6 years. 6 years of shared coffee mugs, inside jokes, quiet Sundays, and promises that once felt unbreakable. I believed we were ordinary, but safe. I believed love was something you protected, not something you traded. I was wrong. She didn't leave with a suitcase full of clothes. She left with another man. I heard his car before I saw it. A black sedan pulled up outside our apartment building. Polished, expensive, confident. The kind of car that didn't ask for permission. Emily stood near the door, her back to me. She wore the coat I bought her 2 winters ago. I noticed her hands were steady. Mine was shaking. Is this really happening? I asked. She didn't turn around. I can't do this anymore, she said quietly. You're kind, but kindness isn't enough. That was the moment I understood. It wasn't about love. It was about upgrade. He stepped inside without invitation, tall, well-dressed, calm, the kind of man who never had to explain himself. Emily introduced him like a business decision already approved. This is Daniel, she said. He's someone who understands my world. Daniel smiled at me with sympathy. That was worse than hatred. I'll take care of her, he said, as if she were a contract. I wanted to scream, to beg, to ask what I did wrong. But pride, whatever little I had left, kept my mouth shut. Emily picked up her bag. She paused at the door, finally turning toward me. I hope you find someone, she said. Someone more suitable. Then she left. The door closed, and with it my life collapsed into silence. The days after were worse. Friends stopped calling. Her family blocked me. Even my own relatives treated it like an embarrassment best forgotten. She chose better, my uncle said once. Move on. As if love were a market decision. I moved out of the apartment we once shared and into a small studio on the edge of the city. Cheap walls, thin windows, nights filled with noise and regret. I worked longer hours, ate less, slept worse. And then came the news. Emily had married Daniel. 6 months after leaving me. The photos flooded social media, luxury venues, champagne smiles, designer dresses. She looked radiant, untouchable. I looked invisible. Years passed. I buried myself in work, learned to stay quiet, learned not to trust easily, learned that being ignored hurts less than being betrayed, if you numb yourself enough. I built something slowly, painfully, brick by brick. And then, one phone call changed everything. Sir, the voice said, hesitant. We're calling about Emily Carter's funeral arrangements. Funeral? My heart stopped. They said she had died suddenly, that she had left messages asking for me, that she wanted me there. I stared at the wall long after the call ended. No tears came, only a cold, unfamiliar calm. Years ago I would have run. Now? I simply whispered, no. What none of them knew was that this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of her regret. Chapter 2. The day she walked away. The day my wife left, the sky didn't fall. The world didn't end. There was no dramatic music, no screaming neighbors, no shattered glass. Just silence. I remember standing in the doorway of our small apartment, watching her fold clothes into a suitcase like she was packing for a weekend trip instead of erasing a life we built for 7 years. Her name was Lena. Once she used to laugh at my terrible jokes. Once she held my hand in public like she was proud of me. Once she said we didn't need money as long as we had each other. That version of her died quietly, long before this day. She didn't look at me when she zipped the suitcase. Her eyes stayed fixed on the bed, the same bed we had cried on together when life felt impossible. I'm not happy, she said, her voice flat. I nodded. Not because I understood, but because I was too tired to fight words that were already decided. Behind her, Evan waited. He leaned against the wall like he belonged there. Expensive watch. Perfect posture. That calm smile men wear when they believe they've already won. He was everything I wasn't. Money, confidence, a future that didn't involve counting dollars at the grocery store. She had met him at a networking event. I couldn't attend because I was working late shifts. She told me not to worry. Told me he was just a colleague. I believed her. That was my first mistake. She finally looked at me then, really looked at me. And for a split second, I saw guilt. But guilt is weak when standing next to opportunity. I need more, she said. I can't keep pretending this life is enough. I wanted to ask when we stopped being enough. I wanted to remind her of every night we survived together. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stepped aside. Go, I said quietly. Evan raised an eyebrow, surprised by how easy it was. Maybe he expected me to beg. Maybe he wanted a scene. But I refused to give him that satisfaction. She hesitated at the door. Take care of yourself, she said, like a stranger. The door closed behind them with a soft click. And just like that, my marriage ended without a fight. That night I didn't cry. I sat on the floor with my back against the couch and stared at the wall until morning. Light crept through the window. The apartment felt too big without her voice, too quiet without her footsteps. Days passed. Then weeks. I learned something important during that time. People don't miss you. They miss the version of you that served them. Lena never called, never texted, never asked if I was okay. I saw her life unfold through social media like a highlight reel. I was never meant to be part of. New restaurants, new clothes, new smiles. And always Evan, standing beside her like a trophy. I deleted the apps. Instead I worked. I worked until my hands ached and my eyes burned. I took night shifts, weekend shifts. Any shift that kept my mind from drifting back to her. Pain became fuel. I stopped asking why she left and started asking why I stayed so small. One night, while closing up the warehouse, my phone buzzed. A message from her. Lena, I hope you're doing okay. That was it. No apology, no explanation. Just a sentence to ease her conscience. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I locked my phone and went back to work. That was the moment something inside me hardened. Not into hatred, but into clarity. She didn't deserve my pain. Months later, I ran into her by accident. I was wearing a cheap jacket. She was wearing a coat worth more than my monthly rent. She looked surprised to see me. Maybe she expected me to be broken. Maybe she wanted to see regret in my eyes. Instead, she saw nothing. How are you? She asked. I'm alive, I replied. She smiled awkwardly. That's good. Evan stood beside her, his arm around her waist, watching me like a threat that no longer mattered. You look tired, she added. I almost laughed. I was tired, but not of life. I was tired of being underestimated. As they walked away, she turned once more, as if waiting for me to say something. I didn't, and for the first time since she left, I felt powerful. Because silence can be louder than begging. Chapter 3. The Man She Thought I'd Always Be. I didn't hear about my wife's return from a phone call or a message meant for me. I heard it through silence, the kind of silence that spreads before a storm. At work, people stopped mentioning her name around me. At family gatherings, conversations shifted when I entered the room. Even the city felt different, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to collide. Then one evening, as I stepped out of my office building, I saw her. Not close, not speaking, just standing across the street, half hidden by the glow of a cafe window. Emily. The woman who had once promised forever. The woman who walked away with another man the night my world collapsed. She looked smaller. Years ago, Emily had been vibrant, confident, always walking like the world owed her something. Now her shoulders curved inward, as if carrying a weight she couldn't put down. Her hair was shorter, her clothes simpler, but it was her eyes that stunned me. There was fear in them. And regret. She didn't cross the street. She didn't wave. She just watched me, like someone staring at a house they once lived in, unsure if they were still welcome. I turned away. Not because I was angry, but because I felt nothing. That terrified me more than hatred ever could. That night, memories I hadn't invited crept back in. Emily laughing in our tiny kitchen, flour on her cheeks. Emily crying when I told her I'd been laid off. Emily standing at the door with a suitcase, telling me she deserved more than promises. She had walked away with another man, someone richer, more established, someone who could give her the life she believed I never would. I remembered begging her to stay. That man doesn't exist anymore. 2 days later, she finally approached me. I was sitting alone in a quiet park during lunch, watching autumn leaves fall. I sensed her before I saw her. Some instincts never fade. Can we talk? She asked softly. I looked up. She flinched when our eyes met. About what? I replied, calm, distant. Not cold, just finished. She sat across from me without waiting for permission. Her hands trembled as she folded them together. "I know you probably hate me," she said. "I don't," I answered truthfully. That hurt her more than anger ever could. She swallowed. "I made a mistake." I smiled, not bitterly, not cruelly. "Just knowingly. They always say that," I said. Right after they realized the grass wasn't greener. Her eyes filled with tears. He lied to me. About everything. His business, his money, even who he was. I gave up everything for him, you, our life. I stayed silent. She leaned forward, desperate now. "I heard about you. About your company. About how successful you've become. I knew you'd make it. I always believed—" "No," I interrupted gently. "You believed when it benefited you. When things were hard, you left." The words weren't sharp. They didn't need to be. They were facts. She broke down then, crying openly in the middle of the park. People glanced over. I didn't move. "I ruined everything," she sobbed. "I lost you." I stood up. "That happened years ago," I said. "Today you just realized it." She looked up, panic in her eyes. "Is there any chance at all?" For a moment I studied her face, the woman who once meant the world to me. And I felt nothing. "No," I said quietly. "I've already buried the man who would have said yes." I walked away, leaving her crying beneath falling leaves. That night my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from unknown numbers. Voicemails filled with apologies. Friends asking if I was okay. I turned it all off. I stood by my apartment window, city lights stretching endlessly below, and realized something profound. I hadn't won by becoming successful. I had won the moment I stopped needing her validation. Emily didn't come back because she loved me. She came back because she lost everything and saw that I had gained it all. And for the first time I understood the true cost of betrayal. It doesn't break you forever. It reveals who you were meant to become. Chapter 4. The life she thought I'd never have. 5 years can change a man in ways even he doesn't recognize. The old version of me, the one who begged, who explained, who tried to be enough, died quietly the day Emily walked away. No funeral, no goodbyes, just a hollow apartment and a silence that echoed louder than her last words. And from that silence, something new was born. I moved cities. New name on the mailbox, new routines, new mornings where I didn't check my phone hoping she'd regret everything overnight. I worked relentlessly, not because I wanted revenge, but because work was the only place where emotions didn't haunt me. Day by day, I built a life she was never meant to return to. By my mid-30s, success stopped feeling like luck. It was earned, every late night, every risk, every failure swallowed in private. I invested smartly. I built companies quietly. No flashy headlines, no social media posts announcing wins. Just steady growth and control. People respected me, not because of who I was married to, but because of who I became. I lived in a house overlooking the city now. Glass walls, warm lights, and a kind of peace I once thought was impossible. On quiet evenings, I'd sit by the window with a drink, watching traffic flow like veins of light, thinking about how strange life was. Emily used to say I had no ambition, that I was comfortable being small. If only she could see me now, not to prove anything, just to understand how wrong she was. I hadn't heard her name in years. Not once did I ask mutual friends how she was doing. I didn't block her. I simply erased the need to care. Until one afternoon, her name appeared on my assistant's tablet. "Sir," she said carefully, "there's a woman downstairs insisting to see you. She says it's urgent, personal." I didn't look up. "Schedule her. She won't leave, and—" My assistant hesitated. "She says her husband died." Something tightened in my chest. "Name?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Emily." The silence in my office felt heavy, not because I missed her, but because I had finally realized she was no longer a part of my world. "Send her away," I said calmly. My assistant blinked. "Sir?" "Tell her I'm unavailable." She nodded and left, confused. 10 minutes later, my phone vibrated. An unknown number. I stared at it for a long moment before answering. "Hello?" Her voice cracked instantly. "Please, it's me." "Emily." Older, thinner, familiar and distant all at once. "I just need 5 minutes," she pleaded. "Please." I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. "Then you chose the wrong place," I replied evenly. "I'm busy." Her breath hitched. "You don't even want to know why I came?" "No," I said truthfully. That hurt her more than anger ever could. There was a pause. Then she whispered, "My husband is dead." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry for your loss," I said. Not cold, not warm, neutral. "But that has nothing to do with me." "He lied," she blurted. "About everything. About his business, his money, even about loving me." I almost laughed. "Almost. You left me for him," I reminded her quietly. "Those were your choices. Don't bring them to my doorstep." "I was young," she said desperately. "I was scared. You were struggling and he offered me security. I thought—" "You thought wrong," I interrupted. "And you didn't just leave. You erased me." Her sob broke through the phone. "I came because I heard you were successful, powerful, and I thought maybe you'd understand now." I smiled faintly. "I understand perfectly," I said. "I understand that I survived what you did to me. And you survived the man you chose." "That's not fair," she cried. "No," I replied. "It's reality." I ended the call. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel cruel. I felt free. That night I stood by my window again, city lights shimmering below. Somewhere out there, Emily was probably crying, telling herself a story where she was the victim. But for the first time in my life, her tears weren't my responsibility. She had walked away from an ordinary man and returned too late to a man she no longer had access to. What she didn't know yet was that her lies weren't finished, and neither was her regret. Chapter 5. The day she realized I was truly gone. The first time I saw her again after all those years, I didn't feel anger. That surprised me. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times. Her standing in front of me, crying, apologizing, begging for forgiveness. I thought my heart would rage like a storm. I thought I'd finally say all the words. I swallowed the day she walked out with another man. But when I saw her standing there, trembling under the hospital lights, I felt nothing. And that hurt her more than hatred ever could. She looked older. Not in years, just in weight. Her shoulders sagged like she'd been carrying regrets heavier than she could hold. Her eyes darted around the hallway, avoiding mine, as if she were afraid I might disappear if she looked too closely. I was there for my father's memorial paperwork. She was there because she had told everyone he was dead. A lie. A calculated, desperate lie. She took a step toward me. I didn't know how else to reach you. I didn't respond. That silence, my silence, was the first crack in her control. "You didn't answer my calls," she continued. "You blocked my emails. I even sent letters." "I know," I said calmly. She flinched. "I read them," I added. Her eyes widened. "Then why didn't you?" "Because none of them were honest." Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked like someone who'd practiced lines in front of a mirror and suddenly realized the script didn't work anymore. She tried again. I was scared. Things weren't good. He wasn't who I thought he was. I finally looked directly at her. "You left because he was who you thought he was," I said. "You stayed because you thought he was better than me." Her face crumpled. I turned away and started walking. She followed. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "I lost everything." "No," I said, stopping. "You traded." That word hit her harder than any insult. She grabbed my arm. "Please just listen. I didn't come here to fight." I gently pulled my arm free. "Then don't lie." Her lips trembled. "I thought if you believed he was dead, you'd come back." "And then what?" I asked. "And we cry? We reminisce? You explain how abandoning me was actually love." She broke then. Tears spilled freely, ugly and uncontrolled. "I didn't think you'd become this," she sobbed. I nodded. "That's the only thing you've said that's true." She stared at me, confused. "You left believing I'd stay broken," I continued. "You needed me small so your choice would feel justified." Her breathing became uneven. But I didn't stay small. Her eyes flicked to my watch, my suit. The confidence she didn't recognize. That's when it hit her. I wasn't surviving. I had moved on. She whispered, "You don't need me anymore." "No," I said softly. "I never did." Those words destroyed her. She collapsed onto a chair, burying her face in her hands. People passed by, glancing curiously, but I didn't look back. For years she had lived inside my pain without ever knowing it. Now she felt it all at once. I walked toward the exit. She called after me. "Do you ever miss me?" I paused. "I miss who I was before you left," I said. "But that man is gone." Outside the sky was gray, heavy with rain. I stood there for a moment, breathing deeply. I thought of the nights I slept hungry, the days I doubted my worth, the years I rebuilt myself in silence, and I realized something powerful. Her return wasn't my test, it was her punishment. She would live knowing the man she abandoned didn't just survive without her. He became someone she could never reach again. And for the first time since the day she walked away, I smiled, not because she suffered, but because I was finally free. Chapter 6. The day I finally spoke. The day Emily came back into my life for the second time, I wasn't prepared. Not because I still loved her, but because I had spent years preparing myself to never hear her voice again. It happened on a quiet Thursday afternoon, the kind of day where the city feels paused, traffic humming softly, sunlight reflecting off glass buildings, my office unusually silent. I was reviewing reports when my assistant hesitated at the door. "There's someone here to see you," she said carefully. "She says it's important." I already knew. Some instincts never die. "Send her in," I replied, my voice calm in a way that surprised even me. Emily walked in slowly, as if the floor might disappear beneath her feet. She looked different, older, thinner, tired. The confidence she once wore like armor was gone. Her eyes darted around the office, taking in everything, the view, the furniture. My name engraved on the glass wall. This was the life she once called too small. She stood there silently, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "You lied," I said before she could speak. The words were quiet, but they landed hard. Her eyes widened. My mother didn't die," I continued. "There was no funeral, no emergency, no reason for you to come back pretending to care. She broke. Tears spilled instantly, uncontrolled, as if holding them back had exhausted her long ago. "I didn't know how else to see you," she whispered. "You blocked me everywhere. You disappeared." I leaned back in my chair, studying her like a stranger. "That's what you did to me," I replied. "You disappeared first." Silence filled the room. Finally, she spoke again, her voice shaking. "I made a mistake." I almost laughed. "No," I said. "You made a choice." Her shoulders collapsed. "He left me." "Of course he did. The man you left me for," she continued, desperation creeping into her tone. "He cheated, took my savings, told me I was boring once the excitement faded." I said nothing. "I thought of you every day," she added quickly. "I compared everyone to you." I realized too late that I was useful. I interrupted. She flinched. "That I was safe?" I pressed. "That I was dependable when things fell apart?" She shook her head, crying harder now. "That you loved me when I didn't deserve it." The room felt heavy. I stood up slowly and walked to the window. Below us, the city moved relentlessly forward, people chasing futures, unaware of past regrets unfolding above them. "You know what the hardest part was?" I said without turning around. "It wasn't you leaving." She looked up. "It was realizing how little you believed in me," I continued. "You saw me struggling and assumed that was my ceiling." I turned back to face her. "You never asked where I was going, only why I wasn't there yet." She opened her mouth, but no words came. "I rebuilt my life from nothing," I said. "Not to prove you wrong, but to prove myself right." She stepped closer, hope flickering dangerously in her eyes. "Then, is there still—" "No," I said firmly. The word echoed louder than any shout. "I didn't come back for money," she said quickly. "I came back for you." I met her gaze, steady and unshaken. "If that were true," I replied, "you would have stayed when I had nothing." She collapsed into the chair across from me, sobbing quietly now. "I ruined everything," she whispered. "Yes," I agreed. "But that doesn't mean I owe you forgiveness." She looked at me one last time. "Do you hate me?" I thought about it. The sleepless nights, the loneliness, the rage, the years of rebuilding. "No," I said finally. "I outgrew you." That hurt her more than hate ever could. She stood slowly, wiping her face. "I hope you're happy." "I am," I said honestly. "And that's something I never could have been with you." She walked out without another word, and when the door closed, something inside me finally felt complete. Not because I won, but because I no longer needed to. Chapter 7. The Silence After Truth. Final chapter. The rain stopped the morning everything finally ended. Not with sirens, not with apologies, not with tears, just silence. I stood alone at the edge of the cemetery long after everyone had left. The ground was still, fresh where her fake funeral had been staged weeks ago. The lie that had dragged her back into my life. The lie she thought would break me. Instead, it freed me. I didn't come to mourn her. I came to bury the last version of myself that still cared. Years ago, when my wife walked away with another man, I lost more than a marriage. I lost dignity, direction, and belief. I begged once, only once. That single moment of weakness became the excuse she used to justify leaving, saying I was holding her back. She wanted more money, more attention, more power, and she found it until she didn't. The man she chose over me was standing trial now. Financial fraud, identity theft, emotional manipulation. Everything she once defended him for had collapsed in public. And when the walls closed in, she tried to escape using the oldest trick in the book. Death. She faked it. A closed casket. A dramatic announcement. Tears delivered through mutual friends. She believed grief would pull me back, that guilt would reopen. A door she slammed shut years ago. But when I ignored the funeral, something snapped inside her. That was when she showed up at my office. Not confident, not proud, not powerful. Just desperate. She cried. She begged. She confessed. She admitted the funeral was fake. She admitted she'd followed my life from a distance, watching my success grow while hers burned. She admitted she expected me to run to her side, to forgive her, to save her again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask questions. I simply said, I already mourned you years ago. That sentence destroyed her more than anger ever could. Today, standing here, I realize something important. Closure doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from indifference. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't love her either. She had become a stranger with familiar scars. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from my assistant. Board meeting is ready. They're waiting for you. I smiled, not because I won, but because I moved on. As I walked back to my car, I passed a woman placing flowers on a real grave. She looked up at me and smiled softly. The kind of smile that carries no history, no pain, no expectations. And for the first time in years, I felt something calm. Not excitement, not revenge, peace. That night I sat alone in my penthouse, city lights glowing through the glass walls. I poured a drink, not to celebrate, but to reflect. I thought about the man I used to be, the one who begged, waited, hoped. And then I looked at who I became. Someone who survived betrayal. Someone who rebuilt quietly. Someone who learned that love should never cost your self-respect. My wife once walked away, believing I was nothing without her. Years later, she returned crying, only to learn I had already buried her memory. Not in the ground, but in my heart. And that was the final goodbye.